Have you ever felt stuck? Maybe in frustration, maybe in anger, maybe just like stuck and you don't even know why. Well, today I'm going to help you recognize what it looks like to be stuck and how you can easily move out of it by learning how to be neutral. You might ask, well, why is that important? Years ago, as I've been both a practitioner and also as a consultant, one day the Lord said to me, if you can't get neutral, you can't be useful. I paused and thought, now that's probably important, but I don't know what it means. So I asked a really useful question, said, what does it mean to be neutral? And it gave me a simple example. It said, it's like a car. If it's in neutral, it can pretty easily be moved forward or backward. Now, if you're stuck in reverse, it's really hard to get that car going forward. And if the car's in forward, it's hard to shift the direction when you need to back up and go a different direction. I began to get a glimmer that being neutral might be useful. And so over the years, I've learned here's the symptoms and here's a process to get out of it. It's been life-changing. Millions of dollars in business, a peaceful marriage where I used to nag because I was always right. Not a very nurturing mother, not always a really good friend. Being stuck is expensive. However, learning how to get to neutral is life-changing. So let's move into what does being stuck look like. Probably the best way to look at being stuck and nowhere near neutral is you have this feeling. Have you ever felt that towards a situation, a job, a person, all kinds of things? Just, oh. Now, just pause in that place and tight jaw. A lot of people have tight jaws, tight neck, tight muscles. You can't see options. You can only see what you see, and what you see isn't working. And that showed up in so many ways for me when I would want to get people doing the right thing, the way I saw it. And I would push and I would stress and get them stressed, get me stressed. And it created so much tension. I just think in your life where you have that kind of tension, chances are you are looping and stuck. Now, what would it feel like, look like if you get past stuck and move into neutral? Well, let's take a look at what that looks like. The closer you move into neutral, the more you begin to see options. You'll begin to recognize you're not so tight in here and you're not so tight here. You're able to go, well, what about that? And what about this? You can ask questions and you move into this space of being much more relaxed and you begin to change, grow, and flourish. So neutral, stuck. I think neutral wins hands down. The key is how can we get there in such an easy way it doesn't overwhelm you? I'm going to walk you through the process so you can do it with me, and you can come back and watch this over and over and over until this process becomes as natural as brushing your teeth. So what's the process? Let's get started. The first thing before we start, do an assessment of some area of your life that you suspect you might be stuck and score it between 1 and 10. 1 is you're okay, you're neutral. 10 is like, that meter just really goes off. Some number between 1 and 10. 10 is really, really and 1 is peaceful and calm. So just write that down. No judgment either way. The next thing we're going to do is breathe. We're going to do it in 2 different ways to support your breathing. The first one we're going to do is called a long exhale. I used this a lot prior to COVID with clients, and people could usually exhale for 10, 12, 20 seconds. When that whole COVID issue lockdown happened, people could barely exhale for 2 or 3 counts. That tells you you're stuck. And you're not in neutral. So we're going to do it together. We're going to breathe in through our nose for a count of 4. And then you can either exhale through your nose, or if that's too hard, you can do it through pursed lips, like you're blowing through a straw. And just see how long you can easily do it. Notice no judging, no comparing. So breathe in. That was a count of about 14. I probably could have gone longer. But see how you did. Did you feel like, oh, that was kind of dumb? Another example of stuck. Because if you can't exhale easily and breathe in easily, you won't move into neutral and you won't see a lot of options. The next one is so simple. I showed this to a corporate executive during that very difficult time. She came in and said, Cheryl, I'm just a hot mess. And when she told me all of her symptoms, I said, you're right. You're a hot mess. But I showed her this one little technique, and she started doing it in her corporate board meetings because it would totally take her out of being like this into cool, calm, collected. That's called neutral. So what you're going to do is to take your fingers behind your ears. There's a little indentation there. And you're just going to rub that in a circle 2, 3, or 4 times, and then bring it down your neck. And then we're going to repeat it 2 more times. Just rub back here. 1 more time. Let's see what you're noticing. If you notice that you kind of sigh, or even better, yawn, you're moving more and more into neutral. Now, when I'm in a situation, I've already done these different mechanics, the breathing, relaxing. This is a shortcut to resetting the vagus nerve. Then I start asking questions. How else could I look at this? What are options that I have control over? What are things that I don't have control over and I can learn to just let them go? And I find that if I've done the precursor, it's like, I can begin to let that go. If I'm working with a client, having worked with tens of thousands of clients from around the world as a naturopath, and I'm saying something and they go, Cheryl, I can't do that. Instead of trying to talk them into it, because that doesn't help then, I will say, well, what would let that be easier? And all of a sudden, they're involved in the process. They come up with ideas. We collaborate. That has value. Now, the other thing you can do is realize that your identity doesn't come from someone else's opinion of you. Now, that sounds really good, but we can't always get there in one step. So part of it is being comfortable with who you are. So today, as you hear this, I'm in my 70s. That looks really different than in my 60s, 50s, 40s, 30s, and 20s. But you know what? I kind of like Cheryl right where she is in her 70s, because now I have some wisdom I didn't have back there. I knew a lot, but I didn't always have wisdom in how to interact with other people. So begin to find the things you like about yourself so that you don't have to get someone else's approval in who you are. Now, the last thing I'm going to have you do is one that I shared with a client he had a wife who was dealing with cancer. Everybody was telling him what to do, and he was just, he was in that stage. I said, just let it go. And I had him do this, just let it go. Let it go. And he said, boy, that feels good. Because when we let it go, instead of holding on to it, which is the position we get into when we're stuck, things begin to move. So you can take another breath, breathing in. Now do a reassessment. How stuck do you feel in that situation? Maybe it went from 10 to 8. That's a 20% improvement in just a few minutes. What would happen if you did this over and over and over throughout the day, throughout the week, with different situations, and began to realize you don't have to stay stuck. You can move into neutral. And the more neutral you are, the more useful, the more that you bring to the table, and the more you'll be able to express the value that God put in you to make a difference in your life and the lives of others. Now, if you'd like to understand how to do this even more, click on the link here of our acceptance video, because that is one that I use on a regular basis right along with the tips I just gave you. I bless you to get out of stuck into neutral and live your very best life making a difference.